He wasn't born great. In fact, if you had seen him back then, you wouldn't have noticed him at all. There was no light in his eyes, no victory in his voice, and no crowd clapping for him. He was just another face in the dark, another man among millions, walking quietly through life, holding pain no one knew existed, and carrying dreams too heavy for anyone else to lift. People didn't see him because he wasn't shining yet. They didn't cheer because he hadn't won anything yet. But inside, something was building slowly, silently, in the dark. The truth is, the world doesn't hand out greatness. It doesn't knock on your door and say, "Here, take this crown." No, the world tests you. It tries to break you. It gives you every reason to stay average and every excuse to quit. But this man didn't. He wasn't born with strength. He earned it. He wasn't handed discipline. He forged it. He didn't wake up confident. He had to learn how to speak to himself when nobody else believed in him. And that is where greatness begins, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. He was the man walking home with tired feet and a silent scream in his chest. The one who stayed in on weekends, not because he was weak, but because he was working. While the others slept in, he rose early, not to impress anyone, but to keep a promise to himself. You see, the thing about the dark is, it reveals who you really are. When there's no one to perform for, no one to clap, no one to praise you, that's when you meet the man inside. And he met that man. And at first, he didn't like what he saw. Weakness, fear, doubt, laziness. He hated how far he'd fallen behind. But instead of running from it, he faced it. That's what most people won't do. They'll distract themselves, numb themselves, lie to themselves. But he stood still and said, "This ends with me." He remembered nights when his hands were shaking from exhaustion, when the weight of his failures felt too heavy to carry. Nights when all he had was his own voice saying, "Don't give up, just one more step." And sometimes that was all he needed. One more step, then another, until the ground beneath him began to change, until the man he was began to die, and the man he was becoming began to rise, slowly, painfully, but surely. He wasn't chasing perfection. He was chasing progress, because he knew something most people forget. You don't build greatness in public. You build it in the quiet moments, in the lonely places, in the discipline no one sees. He trained while no one watched. He studied when no one cared. He cried in silence, bled in silence, healed in silence. And when people finally saw the result, they called him talented, lucky, gifted. But they didn't see the version of him that was built brick by brick in the dark. They didn't see the years of failure, the nights of doubt, the mornings he didn't want to wake up, but did anyway. Because that's the truth. They only see the light after you've survived the storm. He wasn't always the strongest in the room. He wasn't the smartest, the fastest, or the most confident. But he was relentless. And in a world full of people who quit when it gets hard, being relentless is what separates the forgotten from the unforgettable. He had to earn his place, fight for his voice, prove himself to the only person who truly mattered, himself. Because the real war wasn't outside, it was inside. And he won that war in the dark. You have to understand, there's a certain kind of power that comes from building yourself without applause. A certain depth of character that comes from clapping for yourself when no one else will. That kind of man doesn't need validation. He doesn't need permission. He creates his own momentum because he's tasted failure. He's lived through humiliation. He knows what it means to be underestimated, and he used all of it as fuel. People don't talk about the pain. They don't talk about the nights when your chest is heavy with disappointment, when your goals feel too far, and your heart whispers, maybe you're not enough. But he heard that voice, and instead of believing it, he argued back. He said, "Watch me." And then he worked, not loudly, not for show, but with purpose, quietly, consistently, faithfully. He wasn't born great, but every single day, he laid a brick. One brick of discipline, one brick of focus, one brick of sacrifice. And over time, that foundation grew. People say they want to change their lives, but they're not willing to be unseen while they do. He was. He embraced the loneliness, the silence, the grind, because he knew that's where greatness lives, in the places no one else wants to go. He stopped needing people to understand him. He stopped explaining his vision to those who couldn't see it. He realized that not everyone will clap when you rise. Some people will only notice when you fall. So he stopped performing for them. He built for himself. And what he built, it was unshakable. The darkness taught him how to be patient, how to wait without giving up, how to believe in progress even when it's invisible, how to find power in persistence. Every time he failed, he learned. Every time he was broken, he rebuilt stronger. He turned pain into wisdom and wisdom into discipline. And with each failure, he became more dangerous, not in violence, but in focus, in control, in resilience. He knew the world wouldn't hand him a crown, so he forged one in fire. And now, when they ask him how he became who he is, he smiles. Because the answer is simple. He wasn't born great. He built it in the dark. And that's what you must understand. You don't need a spotlight to start. You don't need applause to begin. You need hunger. You need courage. You need a reason bigger than your excuses. Because the dark will test you. It will strip you down. It will expose everything you're not. But if you stay, if you fight, if you keep moving, it will build you into everything you're meant to be. The road is long. The nights are brutal. The rewards don't come quickly. But the man who builds in the dark is not chasing comfort. He's chasing legacy. And legacies aren't built in the light. They're built when no one's watching. When no one believes in you. When all you have is the fire inside and the grit to keep going down. So the next time you feel alone, the next time you think no one sees you, remember this. Greatness is born there, in the silence, in the struggle, in the dark. Keep building, keep fighting, keep becoming. Because one day, the world will ask how you did it, and you'll know the truth. He wasn't born great. He built it in the dark.